Good evening, guys. How are you doing?
Good.
Well, hopefully this is going to be interesting for you, and if it's not, just sleep through it. But there's four really important things that I want to make sure that I get them all in. You till and compost, mulch, and straw, and then you can also, when you're tilling in the fall, you can plant rye or beans or turnips. Now, people have never heard of doing turnips, but it's one of those things that you're not going to be able to eat them, but it's one of those things that really aerates that ground after you've tilled it, and you're not going to eat them. So in the spring, you till it under, and then you till it again, and that makes your soil fluffy. And if the turnips come to the top, then just take something and scoop them up and take them to your compost pile. Perfect. But it's one of those things that aerates. It's like the worms that you want to put in there. If you use worms, fine. But like rye, straw, and if you're going to use straw, you want to remember that in the spring, after the really last hard frost, take some kind of something and you flip that over, because the bottom part of it's going to be really wet and damp and maybe a little moldy. You want to make sure that that dries in the sun really well. So you kind of flip it for a couple of weeks, go out every other day or every third day. Flip that over a little bit unless you've got a huge garden. And then you might want to just run a tiller through it and then wait a week, till it again, wait a week, till it again, and then you should be able to be ready to plant. Leaves are wonderful to till, to put on the top of your garden. And if you don't have a shredder that you can have, where you put it on the garden, then you kind of gather them into a pile like you used to when you were a kid, and you jump in them. Put them in a trash can. Use your weed eater, but only fill it up about halfway. Use your weed eater in it. Put your glasses on for safety. That chops those leaves up really fine, and then you can spread that over your garden as a mulch. It's wonderful because then in the spring, you can just till that into your ground and it's not going to hurt. It's like a compost, which is exactly what it is. Then if you have something that you want, you can have a farmer come in and plow that so it turns completely over. Tilling, it does this. You want a plow that comes over and then rolls it over like a wave. You know how they used to do it, but now they do no-till. So it's kind of hard to find somebody who maybe has like a two-bottom plow or whatever. But if you could do that, that would be wonderful also. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is fire. But you need to make sure in the fall, especially, it's a controlled fire. You should have 2 people, because with it so dry, it could get out of control. So you want to make sure that it's close enough that you can have a hose. If not, put water in like 5-gallon buckets or whatever. Put them close to where you're going to be and try to keep the fire within an area that you can control. So those are the really basic things, but the garden in the fall, that's when you decide if you want to add to it. Like if you say, I'd really like to put a little bit more in this year or reduce it. If you want to put it in, fall's the time to do the tilling, because that gives it over the winter where it's got the freezing and the thawing and the snow, and then everything's kind of, going in and out. Pardon me. That gives it time to get a little bit of aeration in there. So you want to make sure that that's the time that you're ready to do it. At the same time that you're doing your old garden, adding to it, this fall is the time to do it. The other thing is preparing the soil when you're tilling it, is that you want to make sure that an area where you have, say, had blight on your tomatoes, and a lot of people have had that. You want to make sure that you either take those up and you take them away and put them on a compost pile on itself, so that you want to burn that. You don't really want that in with something else. You want to make sure that you keep that separated. And then you want to rotate your crops. So you want to make sure that you mulch or you plant something that's, like I said, that you're going to be able to do in the spring after the last frost. But make sure that when you're mulching and you're tilling in the spring, that you till 1 week, wait a little while, and then till again the following week. You can do that 2 or 3 times, and that's going to make sure that you've got enough fluffiness. Another thing is that worms. The brown worms are best, and you can get them at any place where you're going to go fishing, or you can go online and get them. The brown worms are the best for the garden, and the red worms are the best for a compost pile. I'm not sure why, because they move a ton of ground in their that season. They're wonderful, and you can sometimes you can find them at Walmart. You can find them at any fishing place, because the castings from those worms are another type of a mulch that you have, but that just adds fertilizer to that ground and makes it really healthy. I mean, it's just, you put it into your hands and it just kind of sifts through. If you take the earth and you put it in your palms of your hands and you squeeze it and it doesn't fall apart, then you need to add something to it. You know that it needs something to boost it, to give that energy so that your vegetables and your seeds are going to at least grow. So you want that so that it's going to be nice and full. We also use newspapers, but we only use the black print because of the type of ink that's in it, which is a soy ink. I tried using the color too, and it just rotted my plants right off. Just took it right to the ground. I was infuriated, but I didn't know the difference, and now I do, so I'm passing that on. So don't use the comics or whatever. It's not a very good idea. If you're going to till an area, say about this size or a larger, you can till it, and then if you're ready to know where you want to plant things for next spring, it would be really helpful if you did a stepping stone where you're going to like make a walkway, like you're going to have a row here, and say you're going to walk here and then a row. You want to make sure that maybe if you had a stepping stone, it would keep you in line. You don't want to walk on that new tilled area because it presses the soil down and it makes it really hard. So that when you till in the spring, it still has that compression to it. So you want to make sure that if it's an area that you're going to be walking through, then make sure that you're in an area that you stay in line so that you don't cross over into an area where you want to plant something. So I'm going to move to a different area. Does anyone have any questions around here? Yes.
You want to remind them when to till.
We start tilling in the spring after the last hard frost, and make sure that everything's, it's a little drier. But we till, and then we wait a week, and then we till again. But it's after the last frost. Yeah. And the other thing that my husband just has a fit. We do it by nighttime. If you plant during the day, that weed seed, all it takes is just a flash of sunlight, and you're going to have the weeds coming up, and they're going to be really overbearing sometimes. This year especially, because the weeds just kind of got out of control. And it wasn't anything anybody did. It was one of those things that all of a sudden they appeared, But so this is something that we tried last year. And you're out and you've got flashlights and he's tilling, but it's at night and it's by the moon. So there's less weeds, but now he will swear that that's not true. And I'm not sure that it is, but we had less weeds. So we use a hand tiller, a big hand tiller, and then we also have a small one that I can handle with some mantis. But it's just one area that we tried, and there were less weeds in it. So it was something that was interesting because he just had a fit. But it does work. But the other thing is that I love this book. And if I really don't have, if I don't know what I'm talking, you know, if I don't know what I'm wanting to look at, the library is wonderful. You go online and you can go to OSU. That's wonderful information. And they will direct you to someplace else. So your library, your extension office is perfect. Or you have a sister who's a master gardener and you pick up the phone and you say, okay, what is this? But gardening's me, but she's flowers, she's wonderful. But anyway, so I'm going to teach you how to clean your tools and ready them, because that's really an important thing. You're using your tools a lot in the spring, and in the fall, in the wintertime, they have their rest areas home. And so I use my gloves. Anyway. Steel wool or SOS pads. Makes no difference. And paper towel. And I took one of the tools that's really, you know, kind of bad. So I take my little SOS or my stainless steel, kind of wipe that off. Goop it with petroleum. Olive oil is a good one. So it does, I mean, it's something that's in your household. And I do it again and get that all cleaned up. The other thing while I'm doing this is that if you know a place that you're going to have in your barn or your garage that you're going to put your tools, if you put them so that they're easily marked, because you know, sometimes I'll put a shovel someplace and I'm thinking, okay, I need to put that away, but then I forget where I'm going to put it. You can take one of those boards that have the little holes in them, and you can hang them on that, and then you outline them with chalk so you know where that particular item goes back. But it's, or you can put them in an old golf bag, if there's such a thing as an old golf bag. But this is really a lot smoother than it was, and I've knocked some of the rust off of it. And then you wrap it up into newspaper. Of course, you're going to mark the outside. And then you tape it. Say I tape that. But anyway, I'm going to mark it on the outside with a white tag that says that this is, you know, for digging out weeds or picking out bulbs or whatever. But you know, you should, if you're going to do gardening successfully, you really need to take care of your tools too. Turn your wheelbarrows on the side and make sure that your shovels are clean, because sometimes if you're running a little late, sometimes you leave a little dirt on them. You really need to clean those up for the spring. It's just like doing housekeeping. You're doing housekeeping in your barn, and it's a lot better. But put sand in a bucket like this, and then you use old motor oil. If you don't have any from, like if you're gonna take the oil out of your lawnmower or your tiller, or that doesn't have any motor oil in it, but your lawnmower does. I'd go to Auto Lube and ask them maybe if they would, since they're recycling it anyway, if they would give